Welcome to Mapperton, our family home and estate in Dorset in the southwest of England.
Julie and I took over running Mapperton a few years ago from my parents, the Earl and Countess of Sandwich.
It's a lot of work, but also a lot of fun. This place is full of fascinating stories, extraordinary people, and endless repairs.
So please join our family on this journey of a lifetime as we put all our efforts into preserving this magnificent part of England's heritage.
Hi everybody, welcome back to the kitchen. It may be May in England, but it's freezing cold. So we're in the kitchen today, right? Because it's so cold outside.
We sure are. This has not been spring. We haven't had a day of warmth. Last year during lockdown, it was like summer all through spring.
Yeah, I know.
It's been absolutely miserable.
So cold. That's why we just do everything in the kitchen, right? At least I do.
But at least we're warmer than the cattle out at Coltley, who I imagine are starting to get a little chilly.
I know, but the one's just had a little calf, right? I mean, a little cow.
Well, this is the exciting news. So today's episode is the next in the rewilding series. This is episode 2, but I thought just before we go on to rewilding, we should just acknowledge something that's been rather extraordinary the last week. We've had a viral video.
Yeah, oh, I thought you were going to talk about the White Park cattle having a baby.
I just thought we should talk about that.
We have. So thank you to all of you. We've had a video go viral. Can we just, should I talk a little bit about that video?
Yeah, but not too long, just a little.
Okay, so the video that went viral was the draining and cleaning the 18th century swimming pool.
That Julie decided to do at the last minute. There was no planning. They just went off and filmed it. All the organisation that goes into every other video didn't go into this one, and yet it was the one that has done the best.
We have to film this, and you were like, all right, go ahead, it's not in the schedule. But Stephen, Claire, and I went and we filmed it, and the video has gone viral. Today we've woken up to 1 million views.
Yeah, which is astonishing. So thank you everybody, and thank you to all of you who've subscribed as well. And back to rewilding. So today we've got 2 really interesting things happening. First of all, we've got Dr. Tom Brereton arriving. Tom is an ecologist. He's got an extraordinary background working in butterfly conservation, but he's also the person who goes out into our local bay doing surveying on dolphins and whales. And we're really lucky because he's agreed to come to Mapperton and help us with the rewilding project, looking at doing what's called a baseline survey, which is working out at the start of the project what levels of biodiversity we have. But he's actually also launching our first guided wildlife walk. And in fact, this is a woodlands and grasslands walk. And today he's actually going out with my mother to look for rare orchids because the rewilding project has started. It started already. Because we don't have so many sheep eating everything, all these wonderful plants are coming up, and so
incredible.
So we're really hoping
and orchids. You just wouldn't think of orchids.
No, you would. We do have orchids, but there are common orchids, and then there are really quite rare orchids. And the hope is that they're going to find some quite rare orchids.
I don't know anything.
And then the other exciting thing is we've just finished doing another survey.
Yeah, I'm just going to not ask any questions
which is a survey.
Or pretend to know anything.
A survey looking at the possibility of reintroducing beavers to Mapperton.
Yeah, that's very exciting.
And we're going to meet Derek and Rich and the team a little later in this episode to find out how that's going, because we're really hoping to bring back those big bushy animals into the ecosystem here soon.
Okay, well, can you make sure that when you go out with your mom and they make sure that they take photos? Because in my mind's eye, when you mention orchid, I think I'm thinking of
I just stop at this point. This isn't helping. No.
Okay,
I just stop.
Just take some photos, will you? Just take some photos.
First, I think I'm going to go off and meet Tom And you're going to meet him at some point.
Yeah.
Maybe not today, but in the future.
No.
So we'll see you later.
Okay. Bye.
So I'm here today with Dr. Tom Brereton, and Tom is a very experienced ecologist, and we're extremely lucky to have him helping us with the rewilding project up at Coltley. Tom, you've been doing two key things, or you're about to do two key things at Coltley, the first of which is baseline surveys.
Yes, that's right.
Can you tell us what those are?
Yeah, sure.
And why they're important?
Yeah, I mean, it's a fantastic project, an opportunity for me to be at the start of such a big landscape scale project. So there are big management changes on the estate at Coltley, and my job really is to create a snapshot of what the wildlife is prior to the big management and habitat changes. So we're expecting lots of exciting things to come in. Obviously we can't sort of survey everything, so we're going to focus on the birds, the butterflies and the plants to for those three groups to
and the bumblebees?
And the bumblebees as well, sorry, yeah. And any of the things we can get volunteers to help out with. But for those 3 or 4 groups to act as indicators to tell us of hopefully some fantastic conservation successes.
We've got a bit of wildlife here.
Yeah.
But I don't
Yeah,
think
we're not expecting any ducks, but who knows?
Those aren't really native species,
No.
I don't think.
No,
Indian
no,
runner ducks.
Attractive nonetheless, but
And
no.
we've rather invaded their territory.
But there is some lovely marshy grassland actually over at Coltley, and there's some fantastic flowers and birds like snipe as well.
Yeah.
So this is the first time really that I've been involved in a project where natural processes will play a big part in the management. So we're not sure what will happen, but it'll be really fascinating to see what does come in.
The phrase that sometimes is used is that we're handing control back to nature.
Yes.
You know, we're not expecting any particular outcomes. You know, we haven't got targets. It's now over to the natural environment to respond to the fact that we're not managing in a traditional intensive way. The farming is being taken away.
Yeah.
But we are bringing in some species to provide a balance between flora and fauna.
Yes.
And so the White Park have arrived at Mapperton, but we've also got the possibility of some Tamworth pigs. Do you think Tamworth pigs are going to be helpful for this environment?
Yes,
what will they do?
I think it's very important to create disturbance.
Yeah.
And those pigs will forage in the grassland areas and perhaps in the woodland as well in the future, churn up the soil and create areas where plants can regenerate, seeds can come in and colonise, but also insects like these sort of bare areas that...
it's called rootling, isn't it?
Yeah,
is it rooting or rootling?
Two actually.
Ways. I think both are used.
Yeah,
but the idea is they churn up the ground, they open up the sward, and as a result of that, all sorts of things can happen that wouldn't happen.
Yeah, I mean, it's already seems to be quite a special area for insects from the surveys I've already done. And as I say, those bare areas that the pigs will create the hot microclimates that many insects sort of thrive in. A lot of insects in Britain are on their northern range margin and need the hottest microclimates to survive.
And of course, as we bring the insect population back, the bird the ecosystem starts to work.
Yeah, I think it was Edward Wilson said they're the little creatures that run the world. And so the whole ecosystem is dependent on the lower animals in the food chain to provide the food resources for bats and cuckoos and, you know, all the sort of birds that breed in the surrounding woodlands and grasslands. So most birds feed on insects for parts of their life cycle. We have a good population here of yellowhammers, which we think of as seed-eating birds, but actually in the summer when they're feeding their chicks, it's really vital they feed on insects. So I think the management changes, we will see a real boom in bird populations, I think.
Well, that's going to be tremendous, but we're hoping to find some rare flowers.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the, you're saying what's interesting for me, one of the exciting things is to go somewhere that's practically never been surveyed before. There's hardly been any work done. One of the areas is a site of special scientific interest, but that was probably just from a survey 25 years ago or so. But some of the other areas, I've looked in the database and there's almost nothing known, no records. But they're ancient sites, ancient woodland and grassland, so I'm hoping we'll find some really exciting things. We've already found some good stuff, but I'm sure there's more to discover.
Including some rare orchids, possibly?
Yeah, absolutely. We'll keep our fingers crossed. We've found some rare orchids in the grassland, but we're hoping to look at the ancient coppice woodland and find out if there's any orchids in there as well.
Now my mother is shortly going to join you for an orchis hunt, which is terrific because it's also a precursor to something that we're launching in about 10 days' time, which are the first Mapperton safaris, and these will be led by Tom, who is going to be taking out a group of 10 or 15 people on a guided walk across the rewilded area into the woodlands, looking for all of this variety of flora and fauna.
Yeah, I think it makes people proud of their environment, but also makes them want to conserve it.
And it also brings local people here to enjoy spaces that they haven't previously had access to, which we think is so important. If you are local and you'd like to come on one of these tours, they are on the Mapperton website at mapperton.com. But before we join Tom on the walk with my mother, we're going to meet Derek Gow and Rich Brazier, who have been doing a survey at Mapperton for the potential reintroduction of beavers into the landscape. And I'm going to go and say hello to Derek and Rich and see how they've got on. But obviously that would be a very welcome addition to the ecosystem.
Absolutely, yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you, Tom.
If you are enjoying this episode, please consider supporting this important part of England's heritage by becoming a patron at mappertonlive.com.
So here we are at Mapperton, outside the coach house, with some beaver superheroes. This is the team that is probably responsible for more beaver introductions than anybody else in the UK, certainly at the moment. In fact, you're all kind of leading the vanguard and responsible for beaver introductions all across the country, Scotland, in the southwest. And we are really pleased because we are looking now to see whether Mapperton might have suitable habitat for a reintroduction here. So you've been out surveying this morning, and tell us what you found.
Well, surprisingly large amounts of good habitat for beaver reintroduction, and we've found lots of dense willow woodland down in the bottoms of valleys, really good wet woodland, which is not really being used for anything anymore, and yet can have quite a lot of floodwater passing through it, and can have quite a lot of sediment laden poor quality water passing through it. And of course, when beavers set up their territories in those kind of places, they build dams that slow the flow of that water and capture that sediment. So they're ideal. They'll also bring more wildlife, but they're ideal places to do this natural flood management as part of their life cycle, living and building dams and
because one of the opportunities at Mapperton is that we're up in the headwaters of the River Brit, and the River Brit flows down through the town of Bridport, and Bridport sometimes has very severe flooding events. And the thought is that if we can reintroduce beavers up here, that will attenuate, that will alleviate the flow of water, and therefore ideally we'll have less flooding downstream. And Derek, you've physically moved a lot of beavers back from Europe to the UK. I think you've even been bitten by one.
Yeah, I've been bitten by one twice. Once when I wasn't paying attention, I was trying to impress somebody at a show, and then the other time I just dropped it. And it turned around and bit me straight through the chest, and it hurt like hell. So what we're looking at are landscapes that have been over-engineered by us. We know that. The price of that has been massive loss of biodiversity, quite catastrophic. In the case of this island, to the point where we're one of the most impoverished wildlife nations there is in the world now. And what the beavers do is, I mean, very, very simply, by impounding water, by felling trees, by doing the multiplicity of things they do, is they kiss the earth again with life.
Yes, so this is ecosystem restoration, and it's being done by beavers
They
in
are.
the way that they would have been in this landscape 400 years ago doing exactly that.
It's in large part down to us saying, you know, actually we can tolerate something. In the past we are the most incredibly intolerant species. When you look at not just the history of the beaver, but the history of animals like the wolf or the wildcat or the pine marten or whatever else, the only reason why these creatures are no longer here is because we really have been running more or less a holy war, you know, over the course of the last 1,000 years, absolutely determined in every fibre of our being to exterminate these creatures. If they had no use as a hunting animal, if they had no use for any other purpose, we just swept them from the face of this island. And we have to find a different way of moving forward. We have to build a better future. And at this point in time, as the political situation changes in the way that it has done dramatically, it's a tremendous opportunity for us to build a better world, not only for ourselves, but for the generations that follow.
Yeah. There are so many things in place now, aren't there, to really feel quite optimistic about the next 10 years in terms of beaver introductions and in terms of new approaches to land management. And we hope that the things that we're trying here are going to be exciting for other people to come and visit, because part of what I think is important is not just that we're here benefiting, but that other people can have more access to the countryside, can come and see these animals in their natural habitat, doing all of these wonderful things. So I think we've got a huge amount to look forward to. And thank you all for your help so far. We're just at the beginning of the journey. There's going to be many more things to come.
Good. Look forward to it.
Thanks.
Tom and I are at Wash Hill Coppice, or rather we're at the top of the field at Wash Hill, which is part of the land of Coatley. And Coatley, as you I hope know, and if you don't you're going to be told anyway, and probably told another time and another time, is an area which we would like to rewild and turn into sort of untouched grazing with a few cattle and the odd pig and perhaps a couple of ponies, and we hope a larger population of brown hares. So this is part of the area that we hope to rewild, and we're going to go towards this little wood behind us here, which has hardly been looked at. It's sort of wild, and it may have orchids in it.
Yeah, it would have been managed as coppice woodland in the past, but now it's been abandoned. I've looked on the old maps, it is ancient woodland, and so ancient woodlands usually have a rich flora. It's ash and hazel, and both those trees let in lots of light, so they're very good plant habitats. The soil, I believe, is quite base rich, so all those conditions mean we could be in an area that where we might find orchids. Things like the iconic early purple orchid, which could be there. It used to be very widespread in coppice woodlands in the south of England. A really iconic species that's got 70 different local names. So it'd be exciting if we found that. But there could be all sorts of other things there, things like tway blades, and perhaps not now, but a bit later in the season, greater butterfly and even fly orchids maybe.
And any helleborines?
Yeah, there could well be broad-leaved helleborine later in the season. It's really interesting for me. I'm looking forward to going back and seeing the season unfold, seeing what we find. But let's look for the spring orchids on this trip.
I find this immensely exciting. I've been living here for 40 years and I have never been into that coppice, and I've never found tway blades here. In the past, when I was young, I used to go out with my mother in Wiltshire and we used to find so many orchids, but somehow it's taken Tom coming here and working with us for me to be able to discover orchids again. Let's go and see if we can find any.
Yeah, let's go.
Yep, come on.
Okay.
So we're getting down here, and what makes you think that there's going to be any orchids down here, eh?
Yeah, well, I think we're just trying to get into the wood, but you can see how open now the canopy is. You can see the old coppice stills, but the big ash trees, and You can see how open the leaves are, letting so much light. The leaves come quite late as well compared to the, you can see the oak there is casting more of a shade. Beech is fully out now.
What are we having this year? Oak before the ash? No, oak before the ash.
Yes.
Then we may expect a splash, sadly.
Yes, we're certainly having that at the moment, aren't we? Yeah, so let's just see if we can find an access route in through here. This looks very promising. Yeah, it looks like there's a bit of a drop in the fence over there, I think. So, and you can see the bluebells already peeping through. This looks very promising.
But Tom, is this a rich meadow as well that we're in?
It's certainly better than the first field. Yeah, we can see lots of this sweet vernal grass, which is a good indicator of neutral pastures. This one, yeah,
this one.
Just coming into flower now. Oh, I can see a gap in the fence there.
Oh,
that looks very promising. So you can see as we get nearer to the wood, you know, we're starting to get a few bluebells coming into the field.
Yes.
As I say, lots of this sweet vernal grass.
But are our bluebells particularly blue? Because to me, they always look bluer than anybody else's bluebells.
Well, Britain has, I think it's got 2/3 of the world's population of bluebells. We take them for granted, but it's such a wonderful plant, and the UK is really important for them internationally.
And it's quite different.
That magnificent tree there with all the ivy growing round it.
That's an ash.
Veteran ash, yeah. So let's get through the fence if we can and see what's through there. Some nice, flora's nice already. We've got these beautiful male ferns here, and see that, the Herb Robert, delicate pink flower.
Yes, yes.
Really attractive, sort of a geranium. This is called Woodsedge, which is only normally found in ancient woodlands.
And is that squirrels or dormice?
Could be.
Oh wait a minute,
it's
is
quite
it?
a big nut. They are hazelnuts. Could
They're
be dormice. Yeah, there's lots of dormice activity in this wood.
There's good banks
nice
for the
bank of see the lovely primroses there. So this is
look
great.
What we've got. Literally.
Oh wow, look at that!
Wow, look
Fantastic.
at that, just there. So we have got an orchis. I mean, we've got an early purple.
Yeah, straight away.
Yeah, so we should have.
Brilliant.
Good Lord. Yeah. Early purple. When I was young, early purple were everywhere. It was a common orchis.
See the bold spots on the stem there? It used to be called adder's meat, possibly to ward off people picking them, because they thought adders might be in the area. But I think if you, when the leaves are curled round, they look a bit like an adder at rest. So that might be the reason for the sort of Old English name.
Pretty thing, isn't it? Such a pretty thing.
What a great start.
Yep.
Okay, still some bluebells out. But the season's advancing because the Enchanter's Nightshade, this willow herb, is starting to come through now. I
used to use Enchanter's Nightshade to feed the caterpillars of the elephant hawk moth.
Oh yeah,
yeah. They loved it.
Excellent. We've got some red currants here actually.
Oh yes.
It's a really rich wood botanically. We can see that.
Lots of Enchanter's Nightshade.
Yeah. And oh, look at this here. This fantastic tway blade.
That's great. Perfect.
One of the orchids that are completely green. It looks like a man when you look at the flower head. It has these two legs coming down. And the name comes from the
tway.
Tway is like two leaves, twar blade.
Yeah.
That's a beauty,
Tway
isn't
corbis, isn't there there's a poem, isn't there? A Scottish poem called the Tway Corbis about the two crows.
Okay, yeah.
Look at it, isn't it a lovely thing? Now that used to be common too, in my experience.
All these special orchids are rare now, unfortunately. They're still widespread but very localised. I think in the old days you'd expect to see them on the walk, whereas now you have to make a special trip for these things. Yes, there's a gorgeous early purple there, just really mint condition, but I've just spotted an absolutely massive one up there.
Oh, wow.
See it just where the horizontal branches
very large. Oh, look at it, it's huge. It's wonderful.
Outrageous, isn't it? Really spectacular.
And some more there too.
Yeah, it's actually two sort of entwined together,
but no wonder it's looking
good
so
height.
nice.
And then on this plateau we've got just a whole, like a walkway of early purple orchids. Probably another half a dozen spikes there.
Oh yes, look at them all.
Pathway through there. There's 2, 4, 6 there, and then these two giant ones here. Absolutely stunning. Look at that. It's in mint condition there.
Beautiful things.
Yeah, I must get a photograph if you don't mind. Yeah, that's brilliant. Great.
Good Lord, Tom, what a success.
Absolutely
in this wonderful
extraordinary. Yeah.
ancient woodland.
Ancient coppice woodland, and what a privilege to be able to find these things, and hopefully in the future share it with other people on some of our tours.
Thank you very much for bringing me here.
Good to have an expert with me as well.
No, not an expert, amateur, old amateur. But it's absolutely lovely to see them. And everybody who's watching, please come and join us and come and see the treasures of Mapperton.
I feel like my husband's like sacrificing me. Like he's there filming behind a barricade and he's like, just take my wife. Just put her there. Put her there. Her fear of cows, don't worry about it. Right, Luke?
That's right. That's good telly. Thanks, Ellie.